Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
And I was just trying to make Jeff laugh.
Waving his hands wildly.
Yes. So Jeff.
Yes.
Before we do any of that, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been doing a lot of driving. I probably said that in the last episode, but
yeah, probably.
There's a lot of driving in my life right now, which is fine. I don't mind it, but
I think I might have cut that part out of the episode. Actually, I don't know. I mean, because it was us talking about our day jobs. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, otherwise good.
Cool.
Good.
Cool.
How are you?
Pretty good. I've been busy. I worked. I had family in town, but I wasn't even able to see them because I ended up having to work an extra day this last weekend. And I don't know. It's been pretty good. I've been keeping busy and doing stuff around the house and all that.
Cool.
So Jeff, I have some embarrassing news.
Oh.
So our podcast, specifically, so InterPartyConflict.
Yes.
The title of our podcast is wrong.
Is it?
In the last week, I had two separate people on separate venues point out to me. So our podcast, which is ostensibly about the issues between players within a party, should technically be called Intra-Party Conflict.
Oh,
not Inter-Party Conflict. Inter-Party Conflict
would be two parties.
Would be two parties, exactly.
Oh, dang.
Now, in my defense, I have heard many people use the phrase Inter-Party Conflict to refer to conflict between players.
And it just sounds better.
It does sound better.
It rolls off the tongue easier.
It does. And so I hate to use the defense of, oh, well, enough people use it incorrectly. That means it's true. I hate that more than most people.
I go back and forth on that, but we can
but
talk about that another time.
At this point, regardless of our feelings on the issue, we're not going to be changing the title. I prefer the title Inter-Party Conflict.
Inter-Party Conflict.
Also, I don't know if I've ever shared this on the show before, but the title for our podcast actually came from a quote from a person a long, long time ago when Jay and myself, so our mutual friend Jay, I think it was before, this was when he and I had a group, but we didn't really have, it was basically just like him and me and maybe Steve. And it was before I met Chris. So like before I became a good DM, and neither of us really knew what we were doing. I wasn't a good DM. I wasn't a good player. Jay probably wasn't a good player either. And we were at Borders one day. What's that? You say? That's an old bookstore from back in the prehistoric times. So we were at this bookstore. We were looking at D&D books, and one of the employees comes over, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you guys play Dungeons and Dragons?" And we're like, "Yeah, well, we don't really have a group going, but we would love to have one. We would love to have some more experienced players to play with." And so he was like, "Hey, well, I could play with you guys. I'm looking for a group as well." And we talked to him for a little bit, and he gave us sort of like a little warning. He was like, "Well, by the way, I just want you to know, I tend to be the player who tries to stir up inter-party conflict." And at the time, that was like, whoa, I don't know. I don't want that. What in the world? But
I don't regardless, know about that.
Exactly. Regardless, I tried to contact this guy a few days later about starting a group, and he didn't answer and he didn't return my call. So,
well.
But thinking back when I was getting ideas from our friend Steve about podcast titles, how to get like a compelling title that will make people want to listen to your podcast, I was thinking about it, and that stuck in my head. And when I talked to him about it, he said, like if through the title you can tell people what you can tell them that you'll help them get what they want or help them avoid what they don't want.
Right.
Then that's going to be a compelling title that will make people want to listen to it. So I thought Inter-Party Conflict was a great title for the podcast. And I do really like the title. Like I said, I'm not going to be changing it anytime soon.
Right,
I hope that they take one listen. They're like, "Oh, what? Oh, this podcast is clearly about intra-party conflict. Good day, sir.
How dare you?"
Hopefully nobody has that sort of an interaction.
Yeah, so. I mean, it sounds better. I mean, in most people are going to be like, people do make that mistake of between inter and intra.
All right, Jeff. So do you want to go ahead and get into the episode?
Sure.
Before we do, though, I just want to bring up, for anybody who is not aware, we have a partnership with Audible.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to go to audibletrial.com/conflict, you can get yourself a free month of their service, which includes a free audiobook. You can sign up for that for free, get a free audiobook, and then if you want to, you could cancel it. But if you want more audiobooks, you can stick with it. And then every month you'll get another free audiobook, and you also get a discount on audiobooks from Audible. Audible has over 180,000 audiobooks to choose from. So,
and once you own or once you've received your audiobook, you get to keep that.
Yes.
So like even after you cancel your subscription, you still get to use the Audible app and listen to it at any time.
Yeah. So that's yours forever, and you can listen to it on basically any internet-enabled mobile device.
Yes.
So, Jeff, do you have any recommendations if somebody was looking for some possibly role-playing game themed?
Well, I mean, I haven't listened to it on Audible, but I do know that they have it available on there. Is the Harry Potter series? I mean, I'm sure, but at this point, well, most people who are going to want to listen to or read it have read it already.
Yeah.
But even if you've only read it, the audiobook is amazing. Like their narrator is Jim Dale, and he is by far my favorite narrator.
Okay.
Jim Dale also did some narrations in a show called, I think it was called Pushing Daisies.
Okay.
Which I think was a short run show, but it was a really charming show. But anyway, like Jim Dale does a really great job. He mostly does children's books, which, like, when you think about it, like, duh, like Harry Potter's a children's book, but
Right.
I never thought of it that way because I grew up with it.
Yeah.
And then so like I'm like, well, what else has Jim Dale like done? I wanted to listen to more audiobooks that he's read, and it's all children's books. And I'm like, what the crap is this? I wanted that, that serious stuff that I'm used to. Oh wait, right, it's Harry Potter. But anyway, so yeah, like even if you've already read Harry Potter, the audiobooks are fantastic. He does a very good job.
Do you know, is the Harry Potter audiobook, is that the one where like all the parts are read by different people, or am I thinking of something else?
No. I'm trying to remember. There's a book. And I know the Ender's Game book has several sections of the book are read by different narrators.
Gotcha.
Because it's like different perspectives. Because like one is like the perspective of Ender, and then and then they like go to like his sister and brother, and that one's through the perspective of his sister.
Okay. A book that I want to recommend. I've mentioned it on the podcast before. There was a book series. It was a trilogy that came out in the like Forgotten Realms line of books. That the trilogy was called the Finder's Stone trilogy, but the first book in the series was called Azure Bonds by Jeff Grubb and Kate Novak. I first was introduced to this because it was there was a computer game that was based on it long time ago, and I love the computer game. It was quite possibly my first introduction to anything that was actually D&D. And then I found a book of it in like a used bookstore a long time ago. So I read the book. Then I found out it's part of this trilogy. I just recently, like within the last 6 months or so, found the other two books at other stores. And so I was able to finish reading the trilogy, and it's really, really good. So this entire trilogy, it's called Azure Bonds is the first one. The second one is called The Wyvern's Spur. And the third is called Song of the Sorials. They are some really good stories. They do follow, the first and third one follow like the same group of characters. The second one follows some related characters, but it all ties together. But it's a really, really good series. I listened to a little bit of the sample. The narrator is Kristen Calbley. And I don't know, it didn't really jump out at me as being a great narrator, but the story is a great story.
Sure.
I've even, a couple times, I think one of the Dragon's Horde intros, I think, was very, very largely inspired by a sequence from the book.
Oh, I think I remember that one.
Yeah. So I very much recommend Azure Bonds by Kate Novak and Jeff Grubb. And then, Jeff, you said the Harry Potter series.
Yep, Harry Potter series. That's J.K. Rowling, and narrated by Jim Dale, which again is my favorite narrator. He's very good.
All right. So once again, that's audibletrial.com/conflict for a free audiobook. And you can stick with it if you want. You can cancel it after getting that free audiobook or whatever you want. So check that out. All right. So, Jeff, I want you to imagine that you are a miner.
Okay.
So you are not able to buy cigarettes or alcohol. No. You are a miner. You're working in a mine that is beneath this city that's very run down, and it's not the greatest city to live in, but hey, it's home, I guess. And so one day you go to work, and you got your pickaxe and you're hitting the wall, and then you hit the wall and something sounds hollow.
Oh.
Like you're not used to that.
No.
What do? Do you mind your safety and go alert your foreman and then go mine somewhere else, or do you keep going?
Well, I'm a dwarf in this scenario, so
I don't think I said you were a dwarf, but you can be a dwarf.
I am Gabe. I am a dwarf in this scenario,
Okay.
so I'm gonna dig deeper.
Okay, so you dig deeper. I want you to give me a strength check. Ooh,
19.
okay. I was gonna say, because you tipped your hand and you were not a halfling, you wouldn't be able to re-roll that. But you rolled a 19, so the ore or whatever you were hacking at was really, really tough, but you managed to break through it, and it opens up into a chamber.
Ooh.
And you grab your lantern, and you poke your head in, and you lean in with the lantern, and what you see is glints of gold reflecting back at you.
Yes.
Not just gold, but also gold and silver and like sapphire and rubies. All sorts of colors are dancing on the ceiling and dancing in your eyes.
And I'm dancing. I'm a happy dancing dwarf.
And you realize when you see the bones lying atop this pile of gold that you have stumbled upon a dragon's hoard.
Yes.
I probably should have mentioned that the dragon... I mean, obviously the dragon was dead.
Oh.
The dragon died in the...
There was like a cave-in.
Exactly.
Got stuck.
So anyway, this is our Dragon's Hoard segment. So our item for today is actually an RPG Superstar item. I brought in several of these from Paizo.com.
Yeah.
It's their little contest that they do. I think they do it every year. I could be wrong. But this contest they do to find writers for, creators of content and such. So they have a contest where the first stage of which is to create a magic item. So there's a great resource for finding all sorts of magic items. I've mentioned this before, but just in case anybody's coming in having not heard a lot of the previous episodes.
Yeah, it's definitely a good source for stuff.
Yes. So the item in question today is called the Coin Belt of Beguiling. This belt, of the kind commonly worn by traveling gypsies and itinerant dancers, is made up of 50 linked coins sewn over a length of fine silk. When tied around the waist, it provides the wearer with a bonus to their charisma score and a bonus to performance checks. Now, this is a Pathfinder item, so the numbers are not super relevant depending on if you're playing a different version of the game.
Sure.
Furthermore, while dancing, the wearer and only the wearer may detach coins from the belt to activate the following abilities. So you're wearing this belt, it's got all these coins on it, it gives you these benefits while you're dancing with it, but also you can take off one coin and create the effect of a sanctuary spell on yourself.
Sanctuary is the one where
you can't attack anybody and nobody else can attack you.
Right, yes.
Yes. So the next one is the hypnotism spell, which also takes one coin. After that, if you take off 2 coins, you can cast the calm emotions spell. So you can make people who are hostile towards you no longer or temporarily not hostile towards you.
Right.
There's also charm person, which takes 2 coins. Pretty simple thing. You make someone temporarily your friend. And then there is enthrall, costs 2 coins. So you take off these 2 coins, and then it makes it so that whether you're talking, like telling a story or playing an instrument, makes it so that everybody watching you is just entranced by what you're doing. So they stop what they're doing, they watch you, and then some editions, I think, after you're finished, they continue talking about your performance for a certain period of time.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a good way, like you're a distraction, so you're dancing and you're enthralling them.
Yes. So I'll get to exactly what's going on in just a second. And then the last effect you can use is the rage spell, which I'm not entirely sure if it exists in 5th edition, but in Pathfinder, it was a spell that for a short period of time made you stronger and slightly less defensive. So it was like a barbarian's rage, but kind of toned down a little bit. And it was a spell effect rather than a class feature. And that rage spell costs 3 coins. It says only one function can be activated at a time. The effect lasts for as long as the wearer dances and ends once the wearer stops dancing. A newly created belt contains 50 coins. Once all of the coins have been used, the belt becomes an ordinary length of silk. Now, in case you hadn't, it might not be quite as obvious if you're not looking at the text, but the spells that you can cast with this belt have a little bit of a theme that I think is really, really clever.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost for casting these is money.
Right.
So if somebody's about to attack you, you can give them a gold coin so that they won't attack you.
Sure.
If you really need someone to be your friend or just to calm the F down, give them a couple coins and they'll be your friend, or they'll just calm down.
The coin belt of bribery.
Yes. And this might not be what they meant, but the rage spell is the only one that costs 3 coins. So the way I think of it is that there are 2 people attacking you. You set 3 coins down and then they start fighting. I mean, that's not what the spell does, but the idea of an odd number of coins causing rage, that's where my mind goes. And then like in Thrall, you toss some coins down and then people, you're paying them to pay attention to you. If that makes any sense. So I really like the theming on this item. I like items that have multiple effects that they can do.
Yeah.
And I thought this one, the theme went really well with that. I think it's really clever.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yep. I like the idea of you dancing to charm a person or dancing to enthrall them or something, or like dancing them into a rage.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and like the fact that it says that these effects last as long as you're dancing. So that goes beyond the normal duration of those spells, I would assume.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, going off of they have like the item creation notes on the bottom too, which again is in the Pathfinder stuff, but it's priced at 50,000 GP, which isn't cheap.
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty price tag.
Yeah, so I mean, like I guess it is pretty powerful if you're like you can be enthralling somebody, or you can be with the Sanctuary spell as long as you're dancing.
Yeah.
So I think you can like if they make a save or something like that, they can get through the Sanctuary or something maybe.
Yeah, if they fail the save when they first try to attack you, they can't attack you for the duration of the spell.
Oh, so if they fail that save,
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so it's a fairly low level spell. I want to say it's like a level 1 spell.
Yeah, I think so.
So I mean, like if they fail that save and you just keep dancing, they can't hit you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this is a really neat item. I think the effects that it can do are really cool, and I love the theme. So that's a pretty good trifecta for Dragon's Hoard items.
Yeah, very good.
So if anybody wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Hoard, or if they would like to submit questions for us to discuss, how would they do so?
They could send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Okay. Oh, and I probably should have mentioned that. So this belt was created by Rob McCreary. I don't recall if I've been saying the names of the people who have made the RPG Superstar
I believe
items.
so.
Maybe I have. But
at least one of them I remember you did.
Okay. Well, anyway, so yeah, that was the Coin Belt of Beguiling. So check that out, and yeah, send us some magic items if you want us to discuss them on the podcast. I haven't really gotten many magic item submissions in a while. When I get questions, I usually get like a bunch of questions from a person. So we usually get a bunch of those at a time. Magic items, we haven't really gotten any magic items in a while. So yeah, if you're out there, go ahead and send us a magic item and we will discuss it.
Yeah, even if it's just one from like the books.
Yeah,
like if it's
any magic item that you like.
Yeah, if it's straight out of the Dungeon Master's Guide but you like it in some way, I mean, like maybe tell us why you like it. But other than that, if it's just something you like or something that you can remember, just send it in. We'll talk about it.
Sure. Now, one thing I want to mention is that as of the day this episode goes up, there will be about a week before Jeff and I are going to be doing a live episode of the podcast at our local library, the Garden City Library. Now, if anybody wants to, this isn't going to be a normal episode of the show. We're not going to be talking about role-playing games or tabletop games. We're going to be talking about the anatomy of a podcast.
Yes.
So we're going to be 2 podcasters talking about how to create a podcast. So if anybody out there, it's still going to be the same format.
Sure.
So if anybody out there has any questions about making a podcast, if anyone wants to know how you get an iTunes account, if anyone wants to know what to look for in a microphone, how to get hosting and so on. If you have any questions about the actual process of making a podcast, please send us some questions at our email address, interpartyconflict@gmail.com, and then we will discuss those on the live episode.
Yeah, so we'll do our best.
We'll do our best. Yeah.
We're not necessarily professionals, but
right. We are not we don't have the biggest listenership. So if your question is, how do I get thousands of listeners? Well, we'll do our best to try and theorize.
Right. Yeah. But take that with a grain of look at our listener account and take that with a grain of salt.
Exactly. So I mean, we will do our best. If there's anything that you want to know about the process that we can answer, we'll try to answer it for you.
Mm-hmm. So our first question comes from Jester Rain on Reddit. How/where do you find inspiration for creating content? How should I borrow from other sources without being accused of simply stealing stuff?
Yeah, I'll get to the second part of this in just a moment. As far as finding inspiration, I mean, really, it's gonna vary from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my inspiration does come from other things, like from TV shows, from movies, from books,
audiobooks,
audiobooks. So, it's really hard to pin down exactly what is going to inspire a specific person.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned on a previous episode, like there's subreddits on Reddit that I'm subscribed to where they have like pictures of like landscapes, characters.
Yeah.
Those are a great source of inspiration. You can easily flip through some pictures and be like, that's the character I want to play. Or that cityscape is the place I want my campaign to take place in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of inspiration that can be gotten just from like looking at art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aside from that, like I said, books, movies, there's all sorts of things that you might be watching a TV show and you might think, this is a neat setting, but I could do the story better.
Sure.
Or something like that. And then you might want to look at it, take what you like, cut out what you don't like, and then, fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, something that you're a fan of, and then you think of like a what if scenario, and then maybe just kind of run with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, like as far as where to get inspiration for content, that is a hard thing to answer, but I want to focus a little bit more on the second half.
Sure.
So how should I borrow from other sources without being accused of simply stealing stuff?
Mm-hmm.
First off, I want to say everybody borrows from other sources.
Yeah.
The argument could be made that there is only one story that has ever been told.
Sure.
And everything is just variations on that.
Right. Or I think there's a bunch of different theories on on story, and like there's only like 12 or 8 or something like that.
Right. So nothing you do is going to be completely original. However, the way that you tell it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to be different. Now, if you are just quote unquote stealing stuff from something for personal use, like for a campaign you're running.
Right.
Nobody is ever going to accuse you of stealing that, and if they do, it is to no end. Like,
right, if like a player might be like, "Oh, that's just from you're stealing that from Star Wars," and it's like, "Well, are you having fun? Do you like Star Wars? Do you not like Star Wars?"
Exactly.
It's it's all in good fun in a campaign.
Right. Like if there's even, let's say you listen to actual play podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I've mentioned many times the Adventure Zone. I know that there are people that have taken the campaign that's going on in the Adventure Zone and just taken it whole hog and put it in their own gaming group.
Right.
So there are people that are running that adventure straight out of the podcast.
Yeah.
Now, are they stealing? I mean, I guess maybe, depending on your definition of stealing, but that's not a problem. Nobody is gonna be mad at them for that.
Right.
If anything, the people that make the podcast might be flattered.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the players aren't going to react the exact same way the players in the podcast did. So the story is not going to be exactly the same. Like, the adventure is the same, but I mean, the experience isn't.
Right. And I do want to, this wasn't going to be part of my original point, but I do want to briefly mention that if you might be concerned that, I wouldn't want to just copy that because they already did it better than I'm going to do it, don't let that stop you.
Mm-hmm.
There can be two similar things, even if one is better. That doesn't mean that a second very similar thing can't exist. I mean, think about if there was a song that was undeniably the best song in the world, that doesn't mean that no other songs need to exist.
Right. There's always going to be a cover band.
Exactly. So don't feel bad about taking content and using it in your own game.
Mm-hmm.
That nothing bad is going to come from that. If anything, it's going to make it easier for you to run a game, which is a net positive for the hobby.
Yeah.
The more people running a game, even if they're all running the same game, that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. There's more of it going on.
Right. Now, the danger though does come from if you are quote unquote stealing stuff, if you intend to use it for in a medium that might get you personal gain.
Right. So like you were saying before, if you're running that adventure from the podcast, and then you're also turning that into a podcast.
Yeah, that I think would be stepping over a line that you probably shouldn't, at least not with express permission from the people who created it.
Right.
Another thing would be if you were to take a D&D campaign and then turn it into like a novel. Now, I have some experience with this. I have a story that I would like to share that hopefully will be interesting to listen to. But a long time ago, in 2008 or 2009, I was in a 4th edition D&D campaign. It was a campaign where we switched up DMing, like we rotated DMs. I ran a couple adventures. The other people in the group, each of them ran an adventure here and there. And then there was one DM in particular. I'm going to call him Adam. It's not his real name, but I may have some mixed feelings about him, so I just to be safe. Mm-hmm. So Adam was, he started the campaign out. He ran the first adventure, and then he ran the last adventure. And I think he might have run one in the middle there. And so the overarching plot was his plot. And, it was a very, very fun campaign. I would say everybody in the campaign put a lot of work into making it good. Mm-hmm. We had a website that we had like a message board we would all post on. We would post character journals in character. We all worked to create NPCs for this world. We all worked to flesh out NPCs, to build the town that we were living in. A lot of work went into this, and although the overarching plot was created by the DM, by Adam, this was a huge collaboration. Mm-hmm. So, to an extent, I felt a small amount of ownership as well.
Sure.
And so when the campaign was over, and then I moved to Tennessee, I was really interested in writing. I'd wanted to write for a long time, and I decided, what if I wrote that campaign as a book, as a novel? And, at the time I knew nothing about publishing. So I started at the beginning. I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to publish this. This is just going to be a personal thing. But regardless, I emailed Adam, who I'd moved away, so I hadn't seen him in person in quite a long time. I emailed him multiple times asking, hey, I want to write a story I want to make this campaign into a novel. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to publish it. How do you feel about this? If I could get a collaboration going with him where maybe I would write a few chapters, he would write a few chapters, we would both look over each other, whatever. I wanted this to be as much of a collaboration as I felt the campaign was. Mm-hmm. So I tried multiple times to get a hold of him, asking him, what are your thoughts on this? If he had told me he didn't like it, I wouldn't have done it. I would have done something else. But he never got back to me. I'm talking for 2 years. I tried to get a hold of this guy, and he never responded a single time. Mm. And so, I went ahead and wrote it. Again, I wasn't planning on publishing it. I ended up turning the campaign wasn't even very long. We only went to 10th level or something, maybe not even that far. Mm-hmm. But I turned this 10 level campaign into a literally 100,000 word novel.
Sure.
I still have this novel. It's over 40 chapters, and I took characters that he introduced and fleshed out their backstories into, thousands of words. I took characters that I had introduced and interwove them with everything. I took so much of what happened. And actually, now that I think about it, the novel that I wrote was only the first half of the campaign because I was planning on making it a trilogy.
Sure.
So I took what we all created, although I would say the overarching plot, he had a bigger part in the overarching plot than any of us. But I took what was there, I took what all of us created, and I expanded on it so much. I turned it into something so much bigger. Now, once I finished what I consider to be the end of the first book, so the end of the first story, originally I wanted it to be just one all-encompassing story, mm-hmm. but by the time I got to chapter 30 or so, and it was still
right, yeah.
still only it was maybe the second or third adventure or something. I decided, sure. Okay, maybe I should make this more. So I had finished what I thought was going to be the first book, and then at that point it had been a couple years, and I was thinking, I've put a lot of work into this. Is publishing still out of the question? Sure. Now, I didn't submit it to a publisher. So anybody who's listening who might be well, you made a mistake. I will admit that I have some fault in here, but I didn't act on this. Instead, once I finished the first book, I again tried in earnest to get a hold of him saying, hey, I finished writing this book. I'm looking into my options as far as publishing goes. I'm trying to see if publishing is possible. In other words, I was trying to find out, if you're okay with me publishing this, can I include you some way? Because so far he had been completely absent in this whole,
Right,
this
yeah.
whole thing. I was still 100% willing to involve him as much as he wanted to, as much as he wanted me to. I finally got a response from him after 2 years, and his response was nothing but hostility. He was telling me that, I don't like that you've done this. I didn't like it from the beginning. I'm guessing he probably didn't say anything at the beginning because I didn't, I made it clear that I wasn't going to be publishing.
Sure.
And he felt that I had cheated him by now trying to publish it. I mean, again, to be clear, I hadn't even looked into what it takes to publish something.
Right.
I wasn't going to until I had his approval. But he accused me of stealing his work. He accused me of betraying everybody else in the group. He got his wife and this other guy that's in the group, who's a good friend of his, to send me angry emails, calling me a cheater, saying I had no honor, and so on and so on. And it's like, dude,
Jeez.
I tried to include you from day one.
Yeah.
If you had told me you didn't like this idea, I would not have done it.
Right,
I would
yeah.
not have spent 2 years writing this 100,000 word novel.
Gosh.
And this, oh my goodness, this took the wind out of my sails. The last few chapters of this book flew off the page because I was writing so intently because I was so excited. I even started writing book 2. I got 2 or 3 chapters into book 2 before he got back to me. And from that day, it has been hard for me to write. I did end up writing something else after this, but I only got a few chapters in, and I feel like part of my lack of motivation to finish it is because I had all this motivation and then I just got this huge slap in the face. And, I won't deny that I probably did kind of a jerky thing by saying I wasn't going to publish and then saying I was thinking about publishing, but I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. I didn't know how much work I was going to put into this.
Yeah, exactly. It was not you were not intending to do it. It's just sort of once you got it all down on the page and looked at it, you're like, you know what, this maybe could work as a published novel. And
if he said, hey, I want to, if he wanted to be included, I would have included him however he wanted me to.
Or heck, he could have just said, I'd rather you didn't, and that would have been it.
There you go.
That would have been perfectly acceptable.
I still would have gone on and written the other 2 books and then just been hey, anybody who wants to read it can.
Right.
And so it was such a slap in the face from this guy that I thought was a really good friend of mine. He didn't respond to my emails for 2 years and then responds calling me a cheater and a thief.
Having people gang up on you.
Exactly. Yeah. And when he leveled all of his complaints against me, he was complaining about stuff that I did during the campaign 2 years previous. And one of the things he accused me of was not fleshing out characters that weren't mine. There was a point in the campaign where he wanted all of us to take an NPC in the campaign, flesh out their backstory. And I guess in that particular case, I fleshed out a character that I had made, but what he's ignoring is that this entire novel was fleshing out characters he had made. I had taken characters that he made and gave 1 or 2 sentences to describe and given them an entire chapter all about them and their lifestyle. And so are you accusing me of only focusing on my own characters, or are you focusing me on doing stuff with your characters that that you didn't have a part in? Those are 2 mutually exclusive things.
Did you ever send him a copy?
It was online. Anybody could have.
Online?
I sent him the link on multiple occasions while I was writing this thing.
I wonder if you looked up his name and if he had any published works.
Well, I haven't internet sleuthed on him in a while.
Sure.
At the time, I don't think he did.
Okay.
But at one point he mentioned that he did have some thoughts of publishing something in this campaign world or whatever. Mm-hmm. So maybe that fueled part of it. But last time I did check up on him, which was at least a couple of years ago, there wasn't anything.
Sure.
And one thing, just one reason that I'm bringing all of this up is that even if you do steal something, intellectual property is a very, very hard thing to litigate on. It's very hard to sue someone over stealing an idea for a book, because even if you have a story that some other person wrote, no 2 people tell the same story the same way.
Sure.
If he had written a book about these characters, about this exact story, I 100% guarantee you it would have been completely different than the story that I wrote.
Right, yeah.
And so, you know, he threatened me with legal action at one point, which is like that. I took that seriously, despite the fact that looking back, I really don't think he had a leg to stand on.
Sure.
But, you know, that would have been a very hard thing for him to take any sort of action on. But the important, it's not a matter of like, well, legally I can do it, so screw him. The thing that just hurt me the most was that this was someone that for years I considered to be a close friend.
Sure.
And the whole time, apparently, he was harboring all of this hatred towards me that he didn't mention, and then it all blew up at my expense. And it's just so frustrating. And I feel genuinely very bad about this, but what else was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to know that he had such a huge problem with this if he refused to tell me?
Hey, Gabe.
Yeah.
Some people suck.
I guess.
Some people suck.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. I don't know. Like, yeah, there's so many different ways he could have gone about it. Like I said before, like if he had just said, not even from the beginning, but at the end, like he was like, look, I didn't like this from the beginning, and I really don't like the idea of you publishing it. You know, you don't have my blessing. That would have been so much, you know, immensely better. Still
would have been a slap in the face.
Yeah,
but
right. It still would have been like, I put all this work into it,
but it wouldn't be threatening legal action.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, that's just it's so immature to do something like that, and like to get his his friends or whatever to gang up on you and stuff like that is so unnecessary, and it's discouraging to the point where you don't write as much anymore. Like that's terrible.
Yeah, it was quite a while before I wrote anything again,
right.
And then when I did, I got like 10 chapters in, and I haven't been back since.
That's terrible.
And so after this happened, first thing I did was I went, because it was all online. I just went and I changed all the names.
Sure.
I figured that would be the easiest way to avoid any sort of, regardless of what I did with it going forward. Mm-hmm. I changed all the names, so I came up with new names for all of the characters that I did not make or did not have permission to use, because a mutual friend of ours, Jamie, mm-hmm. he was one of the players in this campaign. When I told him what happened, he was as dumbstruck as I was. He did not believe that Adam would have reacted that way, because that wasn't the type of person that he thought Adam was either.
Sure.
But Jamie told me if I want to go ahead and do anything with his character from that campaign, I had his full permission.
See, Gabe, Jamie's one of those guys who doesn't suck.
There you go.
He's pretty awesome.
So like I said, I changed all the names. I did, because I had it. I had a Blogspot site. We have a Blogspot site for our podcast. The first Blogspot site I ever made was for this other book, and I did take down all of those chapters that were up, and then I started writing my other thing. So I just had the chapters of my new book. However, maybe a year or two ago, I did decide, screw him. I'm not going to publish, at least not anytime soon.
Sure.
But he has no right to tell me what I can and can't write or put online for free.
Right. Yeah. So people put up fan fiction of plenty of stuff. Like it falls under that.
Exactly.
Basically.
So I went and I did put it back up. It is on my blog. I'll put the link in the show notes if anybody wants to read it. The thing is, though, it was the first serious thing I had ever written. So you can see where I started and where I ended up, because the first few chapters are very bad.
Oh.
Very bad. But I think it got, like, by the end of that first book, sometimes I'll go back and I'll read it and I'm like, dang, man, why did I stop writing? I was good at this. And then luckily, the way I try to stop myself from being too unmotivated to do anything else is that I told myself, like, nobody ever publishes their first book. And I learned so much writing that book that
sure.
I was able to take what I knew and use that in writing the second one. I think the second one had a much better start. And so the second one was a completely different story, not involving any of the same characters. All of these characters are characters that I did completely make up. I mean, some of them were inspired by gaming, experiences I had, but
sure.
it was my story. And so that's what I was writing the second time. But that had a much better start because of the experience that I'd had writing the previous book.
So, I mean, yeah, you didn't do it for nothing,
Yeah. So it was very, very frustrating. I'll say a dark time in my life, just because it took something that I was so excited about creating and made me not want to have anything to do with it for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's, as a creator, as a writer, it's a very, very painful thing to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're trying to do something creative and get those slaps in the face, or, somebody discourages you in a way, it's tough.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I can think of, it's definitely not as heartbreaking as your story, but I just remember, it was like an art class in, I want to say, high school.
Mm-hmm.
And we had these little portfolios that we kept in the classroom. We had there were little drawers, and we just kept little folders with some of our works in it.
Sure.
And we'd keep our class projects in there and things like that. But I'd also I would just doodle and do some other things too. I just draw whatever. And I put them in there too, just because to keep them safe. Because stuff would get crumpled up if I tried to put it in my backpack or something or whatever.
Yeah.
So I remember one time I was really into Dragon Ball Z, so I was drawing a lot of anime characters,
as we all were around that time,
right? And so I was just drawing anime characters and things like that, and it was just that's kind of neat, and just drawn from either reference or memory or something like that, or they got triangle hair and in little triangle eyes and stuff. It's anime,
Yeah.
So it was nothing special. I just liked the show, and I liked the character I had made, so I put together, so I threw it in there. And I want to say the following week there was somebody came in from a college or something like that.
Okay.
I forget exactly what position they would have had in the college, but somebody came in to our classroom to kind of talk to us about different art classes and stuff that we could take in courses and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought up that they were looking through some of the portfolios and stuff like that. It's there's some good stuff in there. There's some other stuff in there. I saw some anime, but that's not really art or whatever. And I'm
oh no.
I'm they basically, they she called out she didn't call me out or anything like that. I don't think I had my name on it or anything like that, but she called it out and was basically this isn't art.
Oh.
This is this sort of thing doesn't do me any good or whatever. It was basically well screw you. I was and I want to say it was the University of Phoenix or something like that, which is
not even something worth giving credit to.
which is just as irrelevant as she was making my art seem.
That's a shame.
Back then I didn't know that, but University of Phoenix, come on. I mean, then again, I don't know that much about University of Phoenix. I just feel like they're trying to think of I don't know. It's they're the Walmart of universities. I don't know.
Walmart of online courses or something.
Sure. They were an online college before that was gonna do you any good, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I will sometimes say something is or is not art. I don't think that whether something is art is completely objective.
Right.
I'm not going to say that this is a tangent, but I'll say it. I think that whether something is art depends on whether it was intended to be art or not.
Sure. I mean, that. I don't necessarily think I was intending that to be art or anything special. That was something I drew for myself that I put into my portfolio that somebody went through and looked at and criticized harshly.
Yeah.
Assuming that I was trying to make something of myself because of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe I wanted to go into art, but that definitely put some discouragement on any creative aspects I had. So that's just one of those things that there's just, and she's a nobody to me, but
but her opinion still has the power to hurt you.
Exactly. So it's so people that discourage other people for doing creative things, they really, really need to look at themselves and it's just why would you do that? Why would you discourage anybody from doing anything creative?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, any form of content creation or art or something like that. It
should be encouraged.
Yeah. even if it's offensive or something like that, like it's, you know, offensive stuff isn't always going to hurt somebody. Like, you know, it might, you know, cause some conflict or something like that. But I mean, like, creativity should never be discouraged.
Right.
I mean, I guess there are exceptions to that or something. I'm thinking of like people with like crazy radical ideas or something like that. But I mean, in the topic of like art and like, you know, writing and things like that, like
I think that whether you are going to discourage, if you are going to discourage any sort of creation, I think you have to have a pretty strong reason to do so.
Sure, yeah.
And something more than just your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So after my dealings with Adam, I like I said, I have put those chapters back on the internet so like people can read them if they want to. But I have tried to make it a learning experience. Anytime I start a campaign after that, I haven't really started too many campaigns after that, but I start at the very beginning saying, hey, if I wanted to turn any of this into like a book or something in the future, does anybody have any problem with that? If a single person said no, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I make sure to ask that at the beginning of every campaign. Mm-hmm. And when we do our those things at the library, I make sure to ask everybody, is it okay if I put this on the internet as part of our podcast?
Right, yeah, because we do recordings of that.
Exactly. If anybody said no, then I wouldn't do it. But nobody has said no. Mm-hmm. So like you said, some people just suck.
Yeah.
And
I mean, in those cases too, like people could come by later and say, hey, I'd rather you didn't do that. And I mean, that'd be okay too. Like that you know.
That would be, that would be kind of disappointing, but
right, yeah.
I would respect that if someone said it to me.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's as easy as saying, no, I'd rather not.
Right.
Like you don't have to start attack campaigns.
I know. So back on the question, how should I borrow from other sources without being accused of stealing stuff? Use whatever you want for personal use. Mm-hmm. Use whatever you want for your own campaign, whatever you want to do. But if you're going to try and take that and get it to a larger audience, either through a podcast or through a book or anything that might turn you a profit, even a tiny one, mm-hmm. just check and make sure with the person you quote unquote stole it from first.
Yeah. That's one of those things that makes creativity tough, I guess. Anytime you're trying to like create something or do something like that, or mm-hmm. like even if you are just using something for personal use and you're copying anything,
yeah, the
idea of maybe I want to turn this into something always stops me.
Okay.
Because it's like what if I wanted to turn this into something serious? Then I'd have to do this, and this, or I'd have to ask this person's permission, or I'd have to really look into this.
Yeah.
And that always just stops me in my tracks. Like I just like, well, that's just too much. Like that's just too much work, or it's too much stress or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it's like, like I want to make sure, like coming up with a name for a character.
Yeah.
Is I guess a kind of a good, like, cause it's like, it's going to be something that's like it's gonna stick for the rest of the campaign, even though it never does anyway. Like, there's always something that discourages me, and it's usually something along the lines of just like not knowing, or like worried that yeah, maybe I'm copying off of something, or maybe I didn't put enough thought into it or something like that. So
yeah.
like I don't know, it's tricky.
If I can, I would say if anybody is planning on creating something or thinking about creating something, try not to let stuff like that stop you.
Right.
Because go ahead and create whatever you can now, but if there's a later time where you might want to do more with it, even if that takes a lot of work, if you are as passionate about it as you may be, you'll probably be willing to do that at a later time once you've started it. Mm-hmm. Which if you get bogged down by what the future responsibilities might be, you may never actually end up starting it.
Yeah.
But if you get halfway through a novel, for example, and then you decide, maybe I do want to publish this, you'll be more motivated to do what it takes to publish it.
Sure.
To check all those boxes and cross all those T's. You'll be more motivated to do it because you've actually started.
Yeah.
So yeah, try not to limit yourself when you're creating, but if you are going to try to do something that might turn you a profit, there are going to be some things you have to do. So be aware of that.
Yeah. I guess just always try to be as open as possible too, just because Because you don't want that thing where like you do publish and then like somebody down the line like is like, hey, wait, and like puts legal action on you, and at that point you've made money or something on it, and that makes it that much trickier.
Yeah.
So like you know like Gabe did, let them know firsthand, like right off the bat, like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing, or just kind of be open about it.
Right. Yeah, and it may go without saying, but all of the like music and stuff that I use on our podcast, I've either gotten permission for, I've contacted the people that made it in order to use it, or I've gotten stuff from, a lot of the stuff I got is from freesound.org, which is explicitly, you are allowed to use what's there, except for in rare circumstances, which they might give on the specific file.
Right, yeah.
And then they just ask that you just tell whoever, if you're using something, just tell that person you're using it, provide a link, and then,
Yeah. A lot of those sites they'll have stuff that you can use for free for whatever, you can use that for, for profiting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there'll be like, some of them will say you can't use this commercially, but you can use this for like basically anything else.
Sure. Yeah. So like I do make sure with our podcast to, check every box and cross every T that I can. But if you're doing something for personal use, don't worry about stealing stuff. Everybody steals stuff for role-playing games. That's how the game, that's how the medium works.
Right, yeah.
So take what you like in other media, go ahead and turn it into your own game, and just, have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually going to turn to something else anyway, because you're
Exactly.
working with multiple people. It's the game is a collaboration, which is another reason why that guy was overreacting.
Yeah.
Because I understand him not wanting you to do it. I don't understand the way he went about it. But I mean, like D&D specifically is a collaboration. Like, even if the DM wrote the entire adventure, like, he didn't write what you were going to do.
Yeah.
He didn't write that. He might try to make you do a specific thing, but in most cases you are choosing what you're doing. So that's, there is some collaboration there.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, let's before we finish up the episode, let's just take a brief moment. Mm-hmm. Let's sit back. Let's take a moment. Let's think about the heroes that have come before us and have given their lives, possibly heroically, possibly not heroically.
That's
and let's
silly.
Let's toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Our funeral pyre submission for this episode was submitted by Goldstorm07 on Reddit. And they said, "It's been a long time since this game, but this moment always stuck with me. I was playing a Grey Elf Scion, and we were up against some Elder Evil that was threatening reality. Pretty standard endgame fare.
Sure.
We found out through experimentation that it lacked an immunity to mind-affecting effects, merely having a very high spell resistance. So, I expended a very large amount of points into a charm to make it a willing target, before plane shifting with it to a plane our group had visited in previous adventures, which traps anything that travels to it. They had to escape from the plane previously via a miracle spell the first time around. My Scion didn't last, but she put up a very good fight and managed to wear down the abomination before dying, ensuring that the plane would be its deathless tomb.
Ooh.
A lot of lucky coincidences made up this whole scenario, but we had a story-focused DM who loved stuff like this that made use of little details and past experiences." All right, Jeff, so let's raise our glasses and remember the psionic hero that saved us from this elder evil that was threatening reality. All right. Oh, well, in that case. If anybody wanted to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and for important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're also on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, and subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating, we have a PayPal donate button on our website. Anything you can give us would go towards making the show better. Jeff, would you like to tell us about FriendQuest?
Yes, FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play adventure games. So far, we've only got the Dungeons & Dragons arcade games, but
Hopefully more soon once we have time. I know we keep saying that, but hey, sue us.
I mean, we had a good time with the Dungeons and Dragons games. Was it it was Tower of Doom.
Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara. Yep. All right. If you want to head over to audibletrial.com/conflict, you can get yourself a free audiobook. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from. I guarantee you can find something you like 100% for free. You can get that audiobook. It'll be yours forever, and then you can cancel if you want. But if you stick with it, you'll get more audiobooks and discounts on other ones you purchase.
Yep.
And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
get creative.